So today what we're going to do, guys, is something that I've wanted to do for a long time, and I've wanted to basically do a little fin comparison, primarily the systems. So there's 4 main systems that you can pretty much get today if you go to any shaper. There's the FCS, the original FCS, there's the Future over here, we got the FCS2, which is one of the newer, and then old school glassed on fins. So what we're going to do really quick is we're just going to kind of talk about the pros and cons, and then we're going to talk about fins in general. So one thing to note is we are not sponsored by a fin company, so we are going to tell you 100% our opinions on it, and we're not trying to market or sell anything. This is basically just our experience, what we found works, and what we think of fin systems. And you know, you probably ask 20 different surfers and you're going to get 20 different opinions. So let's get started. You ready, buddy? Let's do this. All right, so the first system here we'll talk about is the glassed on fin system. So this is basically where they glass the fins directly in it, and that's it. What you see is what you get. You can't change it. So some of the advantages to glassed on fins are they're stronger. I grew up with glassed on fins. They didn't have FCS fins until I was probably in my 20s. So I surfed pretty much nothing but glassed on fins for a big part of my beginnings. And I had never ever broke a fin. I'd never ripped a fin out. I'd never had problems with glassed on fins. So that's one of the advantages to glassed on fins. And then the obvious disadvantages, you can't change them. So
choose wisely.
Choose wisely. So if your shaper doesn't really know the best fin setup and he glasses them on, you're stuck. That's it. And also, you can't travel. You can travel with them, but I remember back in the day we would travel in board bags, and that was one of the biggest things that would happen is you were constantly having to fix the fins because they were getting smashed and fins were breaking. And FCS definitely fixed that. All right, let's go to the next one. So the next one would be probably the original FCS right here. In my personal opinion, this is the worst fin system available. I personally hate the FCS original system, and the reason is I constantly would break them. I would break the fins and I would rip them out because there's 2 little circles, and then if you look right here you can see that the only thing holding the fin, the strength of the fin, is these 2 little nubs. And I don't care what kind of fin, I've tried everything from carbon to this and that, and I was always breaking these things off, or I was ripping the fin plugs out. I've gone through so many fins and so many board repairs with the FCS one. So let's talk about some of the disadvantages to the FCS one. Can you think of any?
Takes 2 screws to put the fin in. A little bit more time consuming. It's weaker, and you can't put other types of fins into that specific one.
So a couple of disadvantages that I remember hearing from shapers is I've talked to a couple shapers and they said that the original FCS was really hard to line up, to get a really good system for lining up the fins. The other disadvantage that I found with FCS, the original, is they're always wiggling. So you tighten the screws down, and then within a week or something, you go and feel your fin like that. I don't know if you can see this, but it's going jiggy, 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 jiggy. And pretty much that is a constant problem. So you always have this play in the fin. That was one of the disadvantages of the original FCS. And then, like Atua said, there's 2 screws. So I know multiple people that forgot to put the screws in, and then the fins just slipped right out. And you always have to have a fin key. How many times have you been like, hey man, you got a fin key in the parking lot trying to find a fin key? All right, so that's the FCS one. I would say that if anybody is over 160 pounds, do not use this because they're just weaker, they're gonna break, and if anybody that knows how to do a bottom turn or a top turn, they're gonna break these constantly. All right.
There's something that is very annoying about the screws is that sometimes you strip the screw because maybe the fin key is like worn down a little bit, and then you have to like get the whole thing ripped out and put a new one in, so it's...
Yeah, I truly hate the original FCS. Okay, let's talk about Future here. So Future is this, where basically you only need 1 fin screw. And it basically slides in, pops in, and then you just tighten down the 1 screw. Once Future became kind of a player in the market, I never got FCS again. Anytime I ordered a board or I was buying one off the rack, I was always going with Future. I had a lot less problems with them. They're stronger. You have this whole strength right here along here, and you don't just have 2 little circles. You have the whole fin box that can be strong. A couple of the problems that I've had with the Future is finding a variety of fins. I couldn't, for a while it was really very small selection of fins that you could get. And the other thing is I did actually rip out quite a few fins and the box all the way to the rail, and that's a pretty major repair. I don't know why they would do that.
It's a bummer because you also lose the fin.
Yeah, I've lost a fin, and then I got to go buy a new fin set and get a major repair to the board. But I would say personally, in my opinion, the Future is much better than the original FCS, and shapers seem to like the ability to basically line them up. All right, let's go on to the next one. So the next one, the one we have is the FCS2, which is a newer one. So FCS, finally after, a few years of people just going, your fin systems suck, they came up with the FCS2 system, which looks like this. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is, I believe it's patented right now. So one of the problems or one of the disadvantages to an FCS2 is you have to buy FCS. There are no other brands. Whereas with the Future fin setup and the original FCS, you can buy generic fins that will fit in here. You can buy generic fins of many different brands that can go in the Future as well as the FCS. But if you're going to do FCS2, you have to buy the FCS unless you want to put regular FCS in there. They do have fin screws so you can adapt. But
that's one of the things I like a lot about the FCS2 is you can actually put FCS2 as well as FCS1 in the FCS2, but you cannot put FCS2 in the FCS1.
Yeah, in my opinion though, what's the point? The reason why I want to go with these is I want stronger. If I go back to regular FCS, I go back to the problem of just breaking my fins out. The one thing that I really do like about the FCS2 is they snap in and they snap out. So basically you don't need a screw if you have the FCS2 fin system. You just basically go boom, snap it in. Now, a couple disadvantages to the FCS2 that we've felt, and Atua can tell you, and Keely can tell you, is they're really, really hard to pull out sometimes.
Especially when your hands are wet.
When your hands are wet in the sand, and you're surfing, if they've been in there.
The problem is you have to pull on the sharp edge of the fin to get it out.
Yeah, you have to pull like this. So what we do is we use our leash and then we go like that. I've actually cracked the fin box from pulling so hard on a fin, trying to change out a fin, because we were doing a board switch for a contest and we only had one set of fins. So I needed to pull the fins out of one board and put them in the other board, and I actually cracked the fin box. So there you have it, guys. There's, these 4 different fin setups. They have their pros and the cons.
When you first get the FCS2, it's a lot easier to pop in and out, but then once salt water and salt and sand gets in there, then it starts to get harder and harder, because it's almost like this little ball thing in the plug, which is in the board, which pops the fin in.
So in my opinion, if you guys are getting a custom board or off the rack, I would say go with Future or FCS2. Those would be definitely my preferred. The other thing that I don't like about FCS2, once again, is the selection, especially for a bigger guy. When I go into a surf shop and I'm looking for large fins in the FCS2, at least where I am, there's hardly any selection. There's usually 1 or 2 fin sets if I'm lucky. And a lot of times I'll have to go to every single surf shop in the town to find the fin system that I'm looking for, and that's basically only from the selection that FCS has. So nothing's perfect. I would say that probably all around best fin setup for me would be the Future.
There's always space for improvement.
Yeah, you can get different brands, you can get generic brands. The other thing about FCS2 is they're really expensive. And that's what we're going to talk about really quick before we end this video. So it's one of the things I want to hit on. So a lot of people talk about fins and stuff, and they go, what kind of fins should I get? What size fins should I get? And I'm going to tell you my personal opinion. So, you can go on the website of Future and FCS, and they have these charts. And then they say, your weight is 150 to 170. You should have mediums. And then they say, there's the rating for the drive and the rating for the all these different things, flex, blah blah blah. 70% of that, in my opinion, is BS. I've found that the only way I can figure out fins is I have to test out different ones, and I ignore all the rating and what I read on the fins, because to me it's just like fancy marketing stuff. I can tell you right now that the most expensive fins I've ever purchased were the FCS2 McFannings, and I absolutely hate these fins. I put these in 4 surfboards, and every board I put them in, the board didn't surf right. And the only way I could get these fins to work right is I had to pull out the middle fin and put in a different fin, or I only use the middle fin. If I use all 3 of these, and this is just my opinion, it could be the way I surf, I don't know what, but my most expensive fins, they're still around, they're strong, they're sturdy, and I'll still use them, but I don't like the way they feel. Alright guys, so that's basically just kind of what we wanted to talk about with fins. Also, you know, if you do a search online, fins, there's a lot of generic companies, or not generic, but different name brands that make fins that will fit in the future as well as the original FCS, and they're like half the price. And I'm going to tell you from my experience, I don't think there's anything in an expensive fin that makes it better. Like I said, my most expensive fin set was my worst pair of fins. But once again, that's just my opinion.
Sometimes these cheaper ones, sometimes they're really flexy.
Actually, I've actually used some of these cheap. These are really, I mean, these are like $12 fin sets that we use for like rentals or boards for beginners. And I've actually put these in and thought they felt better than the most expensive fins. So get out there, try different fin setups. You know, when you read all these charts and stuff about fins, especially if it's like a YouTube video and it's by the fin company, take it with a grain of salt. You know, you really got to try it out. Depending on the board and depending on the way you surf and the type of wave you're surfing, it can totally change what you need in the type of fin. And the other thing I'd like to add is, I think what changes the ride more than anything is where the fins are placed. So more than these small little variations, like if you look at 3 different fin sets, you know, they have these slight little variations, they're so minute. I think you would find a lot more difference if you could move the fin. So you know what somebody needs to do is they need to invent a fin that can adjust, that you can slide slightly forward and backward and even maybe change the tilt and angle. I don't know if that's possible, but I think that if somebody came up with a system like that, that would put them all out of business. All right guys, so that's it for the fin. If we left anything out, put it in the comments. I'm sure there's things that we missed or we didn't talk about.
And if you have a friend that has like the same sort of fins, like fin plugs as you, then don't be afraid to ask them if you can like try out the fins, because you might find that other fins feel better than the ones that you're using.
They do have fin programs in the States, nothing available here in Costa Rica, where you can buy fins and then you can send them back and try out new ones, which I think is a really cool program. You can do a search on fin exchange program, just Google it. So video's getting a little bit long, so we will end it here. Pura vida and aloha. We'll see you guys in the next video, and thank you guys so much for all the support.